Okay, we'll put one together quickly. There's one fiddly bit. Actually, there's two fiddly bits. I lied. So these are all the components that we get out of the box. We get an expander, which we may or may not use. I'm not going to use it in this demonstration. If I was going to use it, we would plug this into the side of the unPhone before we situate it in the case. Always in these type of connections, you put the visible wire bit, the connector, downwards, and then you just kind of winkle it in, and you make sure it's properly seated at the end and not off center in any way. And then that would poke through the side of the case when you're seating the thing in the case. But we're not actually going to do that this time, so I'll take that off. Do shout at me if this starts being invisible, because it's hard for me to see. The slightly tricky bit is to get the board seated in the case with the battery in the right place underneath it. The battery sort of sits here, and it drops down into a space in the case. In order to make that process work, we have to twist the wire to keep it out of the way. So we put a little twist in the cable there, being sure not to pull it out. And then the first thing that we do is to just usually with a pair of pliers, it's a bit easier, but if you're lucky you can winkle it in to here. It won't go in the wrong way because there is a little slot. Quite often it won't go in the right way either, especially when everybody's watching. But if you get it just right, you can squidge it in like that and you get a little click and you know that the thing is in there. Oh, it's even powered up. Just while we're looking at the back of the board, we'll note that we have various places we can attach other bits and pieces. So these are things like I2C, SPI, power, a couple of GPIOs. This is the LoRa radio that I was talking about. This is your old friend, the ESP32 and S3 in this case. We've also got a vibration motor. Where's that gone? Over here, if you want to make notifications. And we've got an SD card if you want to store any significant data on it. We have a couple of infrared LEDs, which are great if, like me, you spend a lot of time in a cafe with a blaring telly and you want to turn it off sometimes at 7 in the morning while my daughter's ice skating. I'm not bitter really. And we've got a couple of buttons on here. There's a reset here. If we press the middle button and reset at the same time, press the button, then press reset, then let go, we have put it into boot mode. And that is what you have to do when you first get one out of the box, usually. If sometimes you're lucky and you can flash it without doing that, but if it's not flashing, then that's probably what you want to do. And also out of the box, it comes with some let's turn it off. It comes with some plastic on the front. The little trick that you saw me do there was to, if you turn it off and it doesn't go off, press the reset button. The firmware actually has to be loaded to tell the battery management unit to actually go off. And now we're basically ready to put this in the box. Before we do that, we need to slip this little end plate over the end. Have the bit that says Made in Sheffield sticking out. And now we need to do this little trick where we get the plate to go into the runnel at the end, and simultaneously we're going to drop the battery into its little hole. And this is somewhat fiddly, and we want to check that the battery has gone in to the right place before we squidge it. The tolerances, the case is now 3D printed, and the tolerances are a little bit variable, so you do need to press it down a wee bit. Oh, we can see one more thing on here that I haven't mentioned, which is the aerial for the LoRaWAN radio. LoRaWAN's amazing, it can do like 20 miles if you get lucky. Not so good in, not as that's kind of line of sight, but still. And then we look around to make sure there are no bits we've forgotten, and we just put the front on. And now we have to do another little trick, which is to get the screws which hold it together and the nuts into the box without dropping them on the floor. These, by the way, are to stick on the back for the expander. So you get the expander on the back. There's also online, there are 3D models of stuff to go on the back here. So if you have a featherwing on the back and various electronics and what have you, there are models online that will allow you to print an enclosure for that. It's fiddly to get these to go in there and stay in there while we put the screws in, and I end up doing it generally on the side of a table. I can't see a thing. But if we put those, if we get those to lie down in there and then turn it around, and we can put the screw up from underneath. Find our trusty screwdriver, and I've got my fingers over it, I can do the screws up like that, or indeed the other way around. Fiddly, but not impossible. And that's pretty much all there is to it. The factory test firmware will complain if there's no SD card in it. We do have SD cards that you can use. And that's basically the entire game, and I'm finishing just on time. Isn't that wonderful? Woohoo!